As Nigeria continues to grapple with challenges of economic diversification, the maritime sector has emerged as a critical pillar for growth. A key player in this sector, often working behind the scenes, are freight forwarders. These logistics professionals act as intermediaries between importers, exporters, and various transportation services, organizing the movement of goods from origin to destination. Now, in Nigeria, the maritime industry is a key component of the economy, contributing about 5% to the country's gross domestic product, or GDP, employing thousands of Nigerians directly and indirectly. However, the sector faces numerous challenges, including outdated infrastructure, poor road networks, and inefficiencies at ports such as Lagos, Apapa, and Tinkan Island ports. These issues often lead to delays, increased cost, and ultimately reduce Nigeria's attractiveness as a trade hub. Of course, to discuss the role of freight forwarders in the maritime sector and their contribution to building the national economy, we're now being joined by the Managing Director, CEO of International Supply Chain Systems Limited, Afam Chukwuma. It's good to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Lee.
All right, so let's go down in retrospect. How would you assess the fortunes of the maritime sector over time in Nigeria, and of course, the role of freight forwarders and other stakeholders within that sector?
Yeah, the freight forwarders in the maritime sector are very key players in the industry, critical stakeholders. It will be extremely difficult for efficiencies at the port to happen without their interventions and their roles. As you know already, as freight forwarders, they are indulged in the business of moving cargoes from point A to point B internationally. Yeah. You cannot discuss international trade without the logistics aspect of it, because there are so many documentations that go in with that, so many knowledge, so many understandings. It's a highly concentrated business. And so our fortune as freight forwarders in Nigeria, all over the years, it's a Nigerian thing, and following the trend of the economy, of course, there have been improvements in the industry, especially in the era of deploying technology. We've actually moved from the era of manual, like we used to have maybe in the 80s, and now so many things have gone automated, even though we are still battling with challenges of network, server failures, and all of that. But just like some other sectors, in the banking sector, you used to have manual systems, now you have automated systems. Yeah. So same thing in the industry. But overall, we're improving.
Fantastic. And let's talk about enhancing, intra-Africa trade, especially under the AFCFTA, considering the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. What strategies are freight forwarders, like your company, implementing to reduce logistics costs and time, especially for trade within, the continent? But I actually want to focus on port congestion and efficiency, especially here in Nigeria. That is just been something that has been around for so many years, congestion at Nigerian ports, especially in Apapa and Tinkan, which often just leads to delays and higher costs. So how are freight forwarders managing these challenges? What are the short-term and possibly long-term measures that could help ease this congestion?
Now, first of all, as freight forwarders, we have associations that we use to speak as a people, as a body of professionals. Yeah. And the leading association, which I happen to be the National Deputy President, is the National Association of Government Approved Freight Forwarders, otherwise known as NAGAF. Okay? And by the grace of God, we'll be celebrating our 25 years anniversary, Silver Jubilee, next week, Saturday, here in Ikoyi. And on various occasions, we have made representations to the government, up to the National Assembly, about some of the issues we've raised. As a matter of fact, we are very instrumental to the establishment of a council that currently governs the activities of freight forwarders. It is called a Council for the Regulation of Freight Forwarding in Nigeria, now under the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy. Okay? And we have made paper representations, we have made suggestions, and we have done a lot to, advise the government on, as we are business people, it's not in our powers to regulate. But we follow the regulations, we follow the laws. We intermediate between the customs, between the SONS, NAFDAC, and so many other government agencies involved with the port. Now, I'm talking about the AFTA. The AFTA is actually meant to, make the African trade like one. Yeah. And as freight forwarders, we are supposed to run the logistics aspect of it, ensuring seamless movement of cargo from point A to point T. Don't forget that even before the after, within the West African region, we have the Economic Trade Liberalization Scheme, which takes place, which means that any product made in any of the West African countries will not pay duties and will be moved freely as if it were, in the same country. So it's a resemblance of that is now being extended in the whole of Africa. So the essence is that if a product is made, let's say in South Africa, for instance, and you want to bring it into Nigeria, it will not be considered as made outside of Nigeria. You should not pay some duties. Some duties will be waived because it's enjoying that after agreement. So our own is to, implement these policies and make sure that people, documentation processes, logistics processes are not delayed because we have the education, because we have the understanding. We study these laws, we know the offices, we know the personnel involved, and we do the right thing at the right time. Even before the cargo comes or before the cargo moves in case of export, you begin to file your papers and documentation so that delays don't happen. But of course, like she asked, at times, due to the environment where we operate, some frustrations, things don't actually move the way you want them. Yeah. You could file papers, and if you don't follow up, the paper will not move, no action, and it will be on the same table for some time. Even when you make action, because of the perceived public service work attitude, things don't happen the way they're supposed to happen. And that's why, talking about even congestion, it's still the same attitude. Public service attitude, server failures, people not living up to their responsibilities. But I must say, it is much more better now than it used to be. Okay. Because before now, years back, you used to have goods at the wharf back in the days. 1 month, if you could take a goods out of the port, under 3 weeks, you'll be celebrating. Mm-hmm. But now you can actually achieve 7 days, 5 days. It's not still the best. The government is targeting for 8 hours, or even in some other countries, 24 hours, you have your goods out. Yeah. But now, if you do 5 days, it's just average.
In other words, there's room for improvement.
Yeah.
Sure. All right, very good. A recurrent issue is despite the AFTA and all this group arrangement, is the issue of individual high tariffs. Nigeria has been one that has had to go through all of that, and you find a scenario whereby goods ordinarily that should have come into Nigeria and, of course, making more profit for the country are being diverted elsewhere to places like Benin, Togo, Ghana, and, invariably it's costing us, so a large extent. And even if they do come in at some point, the cost of bringing them in is being transferred to, the consumers of those goods at the end of the day. So how have you been able to cope with scenarios like this? Have we been seeing improvement based on what you've just said? And you also realize that even acts of smuggling are, fallouts as a result of goods that should have come into Nigeria that are going to other countries as well. So I'd like your thoughts on that.
Now, you'll agree with me that Nigeria is the biggest market, around here in the West African that you just mentioned. I was discussing with the managing director of MPA last week, and he was lamenting about, the throughput, that's the number of cargo Nigeria handle. Yeah. Is compared with what Cotonou does, Ghana, maybe even Togo. It shouldn't be compared. But even them are handling more. And what happens is that invariably at times, some of those goods also find their way in Nigeria, okay? Now they are feeding on us because of our perceived inefficiency. In Ghana, they are beginning to achieve 24 hours, 48 hours cargo clearance. Even Benin Republic, the same thing. So what is stopping us from that?
So can this be attributed to the low tariffs in those regions you just mentioned?
That's exactly. Good. So when people feel that they can push their goods through here and get them faster and then cheaper, in terms of cost of doing business, Why not? Everybody is doing business. So you look at where you maximize profit, where you get lower cost of doing the business, then you go there. So there's a lot of job to be done in terms of cost of clearing in Nigeria. And I don't need to say anything. The federal government themselves, they are also increasing some tariffs, even at this point. Of course, it's attributable to the exchange rate, which is fundamental, because over there, where they buy the goods from, the prices might remain the same for many years. But when the same amount you've used to import certain quantity, you now need to get much more money to import it. At the end of the day, you put the cost on the goods and sell. So the exchange rate has been a very big factor when it comes to the cost of doing business in Nigeria today. It has increased. You know the rates as of today. As of yesterday, it was about 1,600 and something, which we, like I said, as NAGAF, we have made a presentation. We have suggested to the federal government, can we have a stable rate that for the purpose of trading at the port, for the purpose of clearing, for the purpose of customs duty and all of that? Because it changes like every week, every 2 days, every 3 days. You could have 1.6 today. By tomorrow, it has changed to 1.6 something. Next, sometimes it goes, sometimes it goes up. If we can peg it at, let's say, 1,000 naira, for instance, leave it there for 6 months, for 1 year, so that people can plan, can predict, can be able to evaluate what they do. It will help a lot. That is our position. That is our suggestion. And we're looking up to the federal government to help in this regard to avoid these fluctuations and attract more throughput into the country.
All right, then. Thank you so much for touching on the role of freight forwarders in the maritime sector towards, of course, building of the Nigerian economy. We appreciate you, Mr. Afam Chukwuma, Managing Director, CEO of the International Supply Chain Systems Limited, for your time on Arise News today.